The Talking Tree. 12-year-old Jake lived on the edge of a dense forest that seemed endless, its towering trees casting long shadows over the meadows. The woods were both mysterious and enchanting, and though his family lived in a quiet village, Jake always found himself drawn to the forest. Yet there was one tree, larger than any other, that had always captivated his imagination. It was an ancient oak, its roots sprawling wide and its bark thick with age. The villagers called it the Whispering Oak, for when the wind blew just right, it sounded like the tree was murmuring secrets to the earth. One summer night, as the gentle breeze made the leaves rustle and the moonlight filtered through his bedroom window, Jake fell into a deep sleep. His dreams that night took him somewhere familiar yet otherworldly. Jake found himself standing at the edge of the forest, but everything was different. The colors were more vibrant, the air crisper, and the sounds around him more distinct. He walked slowly toward the Whispering Oak, feeling as if something or someone was guiding him. As he approached the massive tree, its bark seemed to shimmer, and suddenly, its branches bent lower as though bowing to greet him. The tree's massive trunk groaned, and from deep within came a voice, calm yet commanding. "Young Jake," the tree said, its voice deep and soothing, like the wind through the leaves. "I have been watching over you for many years." Jake froze, his heart pounding in his chest. "Why you can talk?" he stammered. The tree chuckled, its leaves rustling in amusement. "Yes, though only in the dreams of those who are open to hearing the wisdom of the forest." Jake was awestruck. "Why me?" "You have a kind heart and a curious mind," the tree replied. "But there is more to the world than what meets the eye. The earth, the sky, the trees, they all hold secrets. I am here to teach you a lesson, one that will help you in ways you cannot yet imagine." Jake stepped closer, intrigued. "What kind of lesson?" The tree's branches swayed, as if considering its words. "In life, many people walk through the world without ever truly understanding it. They take, but they do not give. They ask questions, but they do not listen. You must learn to listen, Jake. Only then will you understand the balance that nature keeps." Jake's curiosity grew. "But how do I listen to the trees? How do I understand what they're saying?" The tree's trunk creaked as it leaned toward him, its ancient bark glowing softly. "Close your eyes and place your hand upon my bark." Though hesitant, Jake did as the tree instructed. As his hand made contact with the rough surface of the oak, he felt a warmth flow through him, as though the tree was sharing a part of its ancient life. The whispering wind grew louder, and Jake could suddenly hear more than just the breeze. He could hear the subtle hum of the leaves, the quiet murmur of the earth beneath his feet, and the steady beat of life all around him. "Can you hear it?" the tree asked. "Yes," Jake whispered in awe. "But what does it mean?" "It means that the world is alive, and it is speaking to you if you choose to listen," the tree explained. "Life is a balance, Jake. Nature takes care of us, but we must also take care of it. The trees, the animals, the streams, they all play a role in keeping the earth alive. If one part of the balance is disturbed, everything is affected." Jake's mind raced with thoughts. He had never thought of the world in this way before. "But what can I do?" he asked. "I'm just a kid." "You can do more than you realize," the tree replied. "In the morning, when you wake, come to me again. I will show you how you can make a difference." Before Jake could ask any more questions, the dream began to fade, and the tree's voice grew distant. "Remember, Jake, it all begins with listening." With that, Jake woke up, his heart still racing from the dream. The morning sun was just beginning to rise, casting a warm glow over his room. He sat up in bed, rubbing his eyes, and glanced out the window at the forest. The Whispering Oak stood tall and still, just as it always had, but something about it seemed different now. Jake couldn't shake the feeling that the dream had been more than just a figment of his imagination. Determined to find out, he quickly dressed and headed out toward the forest. The morning air was cool, and the dew on the grass glistened like tiny diamonds. As he approached the Whispering Oak, he half expected it to speak again, but the tree remained silent. Jake hesitated for a moment, then placed his hand on the bark, just as he had in the dream. For a moment, nothing happened. But then, a familiar warmth spread through his hand, and he felt the same sense of connection he had in the dream. He closed his eyes and listened, just as the tree had instructed. Suddenly, he heard it, the subtle hum of the leaves, the quiet murmur of the earth. It was faint, but it was there. Jake smiled, feeling a sense of calm wash over him. The dream had been real, and the tree had something important to show him. "Now what?" he whispered. As if in response, the wind picked up, rustling the leaves above him. The branches swayed gently, and Jake could almost hear the tree's voice again. "Follow your heart, Jake. You will know what to do." Jake stood there for a moment, pondering the tree's words. He wasn't exactly sure what the tree meant, but he had a feeling that he was about to find out. Over the next few days, Jake found himself spending more and more time in the forest. He began to notice things he had never paid attention to before, the way the birds chirped in unison, the way the flowers seemed to turn their faces toward the sun, the way the streams flowed, giving life to the plants around them. He realized that everything in the forest was connected, just as the tree had said. One afternoon, while exploring a deeper part of the woods, Jake stumbled upon something that made his heart sink. A large section of the forest had been cleared, trees cut down, their stumps scattered like fallen soldiers. The air smelled of fresh sawdust, and the once vibrant area was now eerily silent. Jake's chest tightened with anger and sadness. Who would do such a thing? He knelt beside one of the stumps, placing his hand on the rough surface. He closed his eyes and listened, but the hum of life he had grown accustomed to hearing was gone. The balance had been disturbed. Determined to do something, Jake rushed back to the village, his mind racing with ideas. He had to stop the destruction of the forest, but he wasn't sure how. Then, he remembered what the tree had told him: "You can do more than you realize." That night, Jake gathered his courage and spoke with his parents. He told them about what he had seen in the forest and how important it was to protect the trees. To his surprise, they listened intently. "You're right, Jake," his father said, nodding. "We should have been more aware of what's happening in our own backyard." The next morning, Jake's parents reached out to the local authorities, who had been unaware of the illegal logging happening in the forest. Within days, a team of rangers was sent to investigate, and the destruction was halted. The village came together, planting new trees to replace the ones that had been lost. Jake returned to the Whispering Oak, a sense of pride swelling in his chest. He placed his hand on the tree's bark once more and closed his eyes. This time, the hum of life was strong, and the tree's voice was clear. "You have done well, Jake," the tree said softly. "You listened, and because of that, you were able to make a difference." Jake smiled, feeling a deep connection to the forest and the world around him. He realized that the tree had been right all along. Life was a balance, and it was up to people like him to protect it. From that day forward, Jake continued to listen, not just to the trees, but to the world around him. And in doing so, he discovered that even the smallest voices could make the biggest impact.